welcome back to Halftime on the Hudson. I am finally your host, Zach Musso, with Matt Spirio. The boys are back in town, and we got a little game to start it off. You know Simon Says? Well, today we're playing Spirio Says. All right, Spirio, what do you say about your Denver Broncos hiring Sean Payton?
I mean, you have to be a little optimistic. Based on how the season went, I think a lot of fingers were pointed at Hackett. And to have an experienced head coach, a Super Bowl winning head coach, you have to feel good. Obviously, you don't like giving up picks, but the way I see it, we weren't really going to have those picks anyway when we traded for Russ. So we're back all in, doubling down. I like it for Denver.
All right. What does Spirio say about Nathaniel Hackett becoming the Jets' offensive coordinator?
I think that it's a very Jet move. I think that the Jets remain the Jets when they do things like this. We all saw what Hackett had on display when he didn't have Aaron Rodgers. One of the worst offenses that I've ever seen. Watching it week in and week out, I feel bad for the Jets. Especially, it felt like they were kind of ready to take that next step, and this feels like the Jets being the old Jets. So I don't really understand it.
What does Spirio say about Daniel Jones? Is he the Giants' franchise future?
I think at least for the foreseeable future, he is. I mean, you make the playoffs, you can't ask for much more. It's not like there was a lot of improvement around that team. And, generally some of the guys he was throwing to were not of, the highest NFL talent, Isaiah Hodgins and Richie James. Get Wan'Dale Robinson back, maybe bring in a number one receiver. I think that things are definitely on the up in New York. He should get to a nice little, maybe a 2 or 3 year deal, something along those lines. I'm sure that would be music to your ears.
That is exactly what I was going to say. That is music to my ear. The chef's kiss. Daniel Jones is the franchise quarterback. Now let's get it. Spirio had enough to say. We'll get into some championship games. Let's talk about the NFC Championship game first. Brock Purdy gets hurt. Josh Johnson comes in. He gets hurt. Maybe Christian McCaffrey should have just played quarterback the whole game. What do we make of it? How do you break that game down?
It's really, really hard because, Purdy gets hurt and you're kind of waiting on the sideline. You're kind of watching those Josh Johnson drives and you're like, maybe they could still be in the game. And then before you know it, Johnson's out of the game. And from there, I never felt like the Niners had a chance. But I've really thought about it, and as angry I was on the day that we kind of got robbed of that football game, I do give a little bit of credit to the Eagles. I think they were coached well in that first half when it mattered. And I think they set themselves up to coast into the second half. I'm curious what you think.
Well, yeah, I don't think they're coached well. Nick Sirianni, the biggest dweeb in football. I cannot stand that guy. He's so cocky, like he does not deserve good things. But anyway, the Empire State – first of all, we're going to talk about Philadelphia for a second. The Empire State Building lighting up, that was just an utter disgrace. I've never been more embarrassed to be a New Yorker. I mean, come on, man. Think the Liberty Bell's going to light up orange when the Mets win the World Series? I don't think so. Back to the game.
Do they light the Liberty Bell?
No, but they should.
Okay.
I think we should show the Mets some respect in Philly.
Apparently a lot of people need to show the Mets respect.
We don't have to get that yet. You don't want to get me going. I'll be like Jacob on the Knicks. Like let's get back. We'll get back to it. So for me personally, I don't know how to make of it. Jalen Hurts was actually really not good in the game. If you looked at his passing, he missed some deep shots. He didn't have to take any shots. They could just run the ball down the 49ers' throat, which was a little surprising. The quarterback thing was just a shame because when you get to the championship games, you want to see some good games. Brock Purdy, that's tough news. He's out for a year now with Tommy John surgery. So who knows where the 49ers quarterback will be next year.
Back to Trey Lance.
Trey Lance. So it's sad. The Eagles, it's not a knock on them, but they've had one of the easiest coasts to the Super Bowl in NFL history. I mean, the Giants, we were so happy to even be there with that roster. So just to wallop them and then to just beat a team with no quarterback. So it's hard to say what they are because they did not look good at the end of the regular season. They felt like they might be a first-round exit, and now they're the favorites in Vegas in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, after that game kind of ended, I think there was, a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But then we sat there looking, Cincinnati, Kansas City. The Eagles are going to get tested by one of those two teams. Those are two really good teams. We got a really, really good game out of them. I'm curious, what was your biggest takeaway from that Chiefs-Bengals game?
I cannot stand Patrick Mahomes. I do not really like his family. They are all very loud and obnoxious. But I was kind of glad to see the Bengals get humbled. They got a little cocky a little fast. And when Travis Kelce told the mayor to shut his mouth and called him a jabroni, I kind of liked it. I kind of vibed with it. My thoughts were Patrick Mahomes playing with practice squad receivers because all three of his receivers were out. Just beat one of the best offensive skill groups in football, and it just comes back down to Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in football. He's the best talent in football, and that's what wins. And I'm sort of glad that the Chiefs won because the Bengals' offensive line would not have held up against that Eagles pass rush.
Oh, absolutely not. And I think you saw it at times, like, in my opinion, the most decisive play of the game that not a lot of people are talking about. Push Chris Jones onto the outside, put him on the end, beats the tackle, essentially get a game-winning sack, got the ball back in Mahomes' hands. That's money down the stretch. I think that, you have to put a lot of faith in those Kansas City rookie corners, and they've stepped up every time, and I would not be shocked if they do it again against the Eagles. But obviously that X factor for Kansas City going forward is going to be how healthy can Mahomes get in 2 weeks. If that's what he looked like on a week, I'm pretty confident that he'll be almost at 100% come Super Bowl time. And, he ran when it mattered. I know you don't like Mahomes, but, man, he proves time and time again how special he is. Just for a second, there's a little bit of doubt. This hot Bengals team, Joe Burrow's beaten him 3 times. An all-time great player does what an all-time great player does. Comes and wins that game. And I'm very, very excited for the Super Bowl matchup. The Andy Reid Bowl.
The Andy Reid Bowl. Did you know the Kelsey brothers are playing in the Super Bowl? I haven't heard anything about it.
Do they have a podcast?
Did you know they were playing in the Super Bowl?
Wow.
It's actually wild. They're playing in the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl matchup is very interesting. If you want to talk about why teams are good in the NFL, you're good in the trenches. Both the Eagles and Chiefs have top 10 offensive and defensive lines, according to PFF.
I mean, their offensive lines, I'd say, are 2 of the top 3 or 4.
And they both passed the eye test, too.
Yeah.
They're pretty obvious. That's one thing. Mahomes, with that banged-up ankle, should be better in 2 weeks. The offensive line giving him time. They're going to need to give him time because this kind of feels like the Super Bowl in 2020 between the Chiefs and the Bucs, where, like, Mahomes' team's banged up here. It didn't go well last time when his team was banged up, and he's playing a team with a ferocious pass rush and an elite secondary. It kind of feels like it's all about, that's the matchup of the game. It's not the Eagles' offense versus the Chiefs' defense. No. It's the Mahomes versus that secondary and Jonathan Gannon's defense.
I agree, but I think that, you saw after that Super Bowl for Kansas City when they lost to Tampa, how many resources they put into that offensive line. This is the test, is that offensive line now ready to go up against a front that's probably just as good as Tampa's from a few years ago. They have a million guys they can throw at you on Philly. Dominican Sue comes off the bench, and you have him just Cox in the middle, Graham on the outside, and Hassan Reddick looks like the best pass rusher in football right now. They're gonna have their hands full, but it's gonna be a very, very good game between a very young and hungry Eagles team and a Kansas City team that's looking to get back on top. I'm very excited.
Dude, I can't wait. It's a weird Super Bowl for me because my rooting interests are a little banged up there. But if you're the Eagles, you want a message from a Giants fan. Now, this is not about the Giants. We're coming, but this is not about the Giants. This is your time to win. 8 of 11 defensive starters are free agents after this season. Jalen Hurts is going to command $50 million a year, which he hasn't had to do much right now, so we're still not sure if he's that kind of quarterback. We'll see in the Super Bowl. He's going to have to make some plays. They're not going to coast over the Chiefs. But this is your time. If you want to win and get your second franchise Super Bowl, you better do it now because it's going to be some tough sledding. You want to win when your quarterback's not making them a lot of money. And so this is their time. This is their time. But we had some big news in the NFL today. We talked about this briefly because this happened last offseason too. Tom Brady retired. What are your thoughts about that?
For starters, I'm going to give it, a couple days before it's, really true. I'm going to make sure Tom is sure that it's time.
Out.
I think that the word I would use is unfortunate, honestly. I would say based on last year he retired, we were all kind of like, you know what, good career, Tom. He came back. I guess they made the playoffs. If you want to say they were good this year, they weren't. It's unfortunate that this is kind of our lasting memory of Tom. And I'm not someone that likes Tom Brady, but I can understand, the all-time great when I see him. It's sad that this is how we have to kind of remember Tom. I hope that, as the years go on, we remember those Super Bowl runs, especially the ones that we got to see growing up in against Atlanta, against Seattle, those kind of games. I would like to remember those a little bit more than this version of Tom Brady. But, congratulations, Tom. I wish you had done it a year sooner so I don't have to hear Greg Olsen do the Super Bowl. That should be your spot in there.
I kind of like Greg Olsen.
Oh, don't do that. Tom, you'll have a long and prosperous career in the booth, man.
Dude, I appreciate you for your 2 Super Bowls you gave to the New York Giants. I mean, you're the all-time GOAT. Eli Manning beat you twice, so I don't know what we're going to take away from that. But the game would be a little different without him. It probably would have been better if he won out on top last year with that performance against the Rams. A little sad to see him go out this way. I kind of wanted to see him go home and be the 49ers quarterback because with that roster, Tom Brady could have won a Super Bowl next year.
I don't know, man.
He
I don't
could've
know
won
if
a
Tom
Super
still
Bowl
has
next
them,
year.
man. You know, the wind just feels a little colder without Tom.
Yeah, but Tom, we don't have to devote more time to you. You're retired. We're
Pretty
done.
good. We'll
We're
see
done.
you on Sundays on our television
I guess
screen.
we'll see you calling Giants games in the Super Bowl. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, that's a Giants game. So that's Giants Broncos Super Bowl.
Giants Broncos Super Bowl next year because great segue. Broncos country. Let's ride. Russell Wilson, Sean Payton. We riding or are we dying?
We're riding. We're always riding. Like I said, we're doubling down. We're in. We're all in on this, and I could not be more happy to have Sean Payton. I've always been a Sean Payton guy. I know you don't believe that. Watching that, I'm a Colts fan growing up. I love Payton. Watching that Super Bowl, I respect what Sean Payton did. I like a coach that's got a little bit of gumption. Sean's got a lot of gumption, and that's what we need. We kind of need to play with a little chip on our shoulder next year. Because we're the laughing stock of the league. Let's it's no secret. We are the laughing stock of the league.
Fun, bro.
We should own it. Let's own it. I think I hope Russ owns it because it's time to ride, man. It's absolutely time to ride.
Yeah, Russ is going to have to do some praying to make sure Broncos get back in country.
We'll be good.
Broncos country is going to ride, though. And let him keep saying it, bro. You want to make fun of Russ for it? It's awesome. It's a catchphrase.
Nothing fired me up more, man. We won that game in London, and Russ, after you go, tight game, and he goes over silent porter, he goes, Broncos country, let's ride. Little fist bump. Come on, Russ.
I like the ones
let's go, baby.
I like the ones after, the Rams lost on Christmas, and he just, let's ride and fucking
Russ cooks Christmas dinner.
Sprints off stage. That's what I like. All right. We gotta talk more about the Broncos, though. We got to talk more about this.
There's more to say?
Sean Payton. I actually have one thing to say.
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm not making any judgments about this. Mike McCarthy has one Super Bowl. Sean Payton has one Super Bowl. So that's equal. They have pretty identical regular season record. What is the Sean Payton as someone who loves Sean Payton? Yeah. I don't have any negative feelings for Sean Payton. I just don't know if he's not overrated.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think even when we look at McCarthy at times, we're like, is it on McCarthy?
Yeah.
I feel like these Dallas teams are better than the Jason Garrett Dallas teams. They feel better. So I think McCarthy does a decent job. They've had some unfortunate postseason success, but I think he does a decent job, and I think Sean Payton could do some of the same. And listen, the Broncos won that Super Bowl in 2015, but we have one of the longest playoff droughts in the league now. I would love to just back and see some postseason football, man. We don't win another Super Bowl for a long time. That's all right. Can we just get back to the postseason, damn it? That's all I'm hoping for.
That's all you're asking for?
That's all I'm asking for.
Is that too much to ask, Russ? Is that too much to ask?
It might be.
All right, so let's talk. There's been some other coaching hires. D'Amico Ryans to Houston, Frank Reich to Carolina. D'Amico Ryans catch your eye.
Couple former players going back to their
Frank
former
Reich,
teams.
the original Panther quarterback.
The
original. What do you like there?
I think Ryans is a good hire in Houston. I think that especially when you're trying to build a culture, which I know we just throw that word around, build a culture. What does that mean? We want guys that are on the same page. We want guys that can rally around something. And that when you have a young guy like that, a player's coach, that gives the young guys something to rally around. Like, hey, we're young, we're scrappy, we want to play, we want to win. And I think that that's what you're going to see kind of happen in Houston. I think the Frank Reich hire, I like Frank Reich, but it's a little safe, especially for a team like Carolina, who we've kind of, seen. They've gone down the route of, bringing in Matt Rule, a college coach, an experienced guy. They want to bring in someone with a little experience, which, based on how their season ended, maybe that is a better hire for them. They're trying to, turn around a little bit quicker. So I think that those are probably two good hires. I'm curious which one you think is better.
I think they're both good hires. Frank Reich is perfect for Carolina. I kind of feel that way. He's a Charlotte guy. He knows the area. It's kind of something you need when you're building. And the NFC South is going to be the worst division of football next year.
No doubt.
Especially with Brady gone. They might have been the best team in that division this year. They might have fought the best in the playoffs. So they're not going to win the Super Bowl, but they could have a Giants-like season next year where they turn it around much faster.
Sometimes just making the playoffs, like you said, that's all you ask for.
That's what you all ask for. Other way, D'Amico Ryans, I love. I think if you're building a culture like that in Houston, you have to bring someone who knows the place, knows the infrastructure. That's a long build, man. That's not an overnight. There's no hope of winning next year. In 3-4 years down the road, we could be looking at that hire like we really love it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think that only time will tell with things like that, but that's just about all the time we have here today. We're going to kick this over to prove your point. We're going to have a couple guys battle it out here. A couple of more NFL debate topics coming your way here during leading up to the Super Bowl. So just stay tuned. What's up, guys? We are back here with another segment of Prove Your point. We got 2 seniors here in their last semester, their last chance to prove that they are the superior debater. We have a few great topics today, all NFL. It's Super Bowl week. We're starting off here. Head coaching vacancies, the Colts and the Cardinals. Which is the more attractive destination? Nick, we're starting with you. Give it to me.
Well, there's only 2 destinations left at this point. We've got the Arizona Cardinals. We've got the Indianapolis Colts. I wouldn't say either of them is necessarily a home run spot to go. But if I'm a head coach candidate, the one that I'm choosing is the Arizona Cardinals. And the first reason, first and foremost, is the fact that Kyler Murray's still there. Now, I know he's got the ACL injury that he's got to recover from, but not many franchises you can jump right in and know, hey, we've got a guy that's locked up long-term as our franchise quarterback. That's the case with Kyler Murray, whether the new Cardinals head coach wants to admit it or not. That's something they're going to have to embrace. So you've got that franchise quarterback there. We know it's hard to find those. Ask the Jets how easy it is to find one early in the first round. It doesn't just happen. So the Colts may have that pick, but it's no home run, whoever they take. Now, the next thing, too, that you have to consider is I know that the Cardinals roster needs work, but the fact that they just brought in a new general manager, Monty Austin-Fort, now when you come in as the head coach and he picks who his next head coach is going to be, you know that there may be some longevity that's going to be built in there as those 2 guys try to build the franchise from the ground up moving forward. They're going to have a chance to try and piece something together over the next couple of years. You look around the NFC, you look around the AFC, specifically the divisions these teams play in. What are the other quarterbacks that are in those divisions? You look at the NFC West, where we've got Kyler Murray, like I just said, your franchise quarterback. In San Francisco, Brock Purdy just had the huge injury. Trey Lance, we still don't really know what we have in Trey Lance in San Francisco. Matt Stafford definitely didn't look like the same player this past season with the Rams. And to close things out, the Seahawks. Is Geno Smith legit? Is he a long-term answer? A guy that's obviously more than halfway through his career. Flip it over to the Colts division, the AFC South. Trevor Lawrence looks like a stud. Wouldn't surprise me if he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL come next season. I think that young Jaguars team is on the rise, on the prowl, and they're going to be a legit force there. So I think that the Cardinals is the better situation for potential head coach candidates.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of good points there. You really got into it. I don't know. I'm curious to see what Brian has to say. Definitely my mind is not made yet. So, Brian, what do you got?
All right, so I think for starters, the more attractive head coach destination has to be with the Indianapolis Colts. They got tons of talented players on that roster already in Shaquille Leonard, DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., many more. It doesn't take much to rebuild, and the Colts have the 4th pick in the draft. They need a quarterback. There's a lot of talented quarterbacks in this draft class. They can find one. They have a good general manager in Chris Ballard, a good owner in Jim Irsay. The Colts, they're kind of close to a division title, and the division is fairly wide open. Their toughest competition is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're a great team. They're going to be better with the addition of Calvin Ridley, but they're still a beatable team. So, and the Texans aren't going anywhere, and the Titans, they're kind of a mess right now. I think the Colts is an attractive job opening, and they got a lot to work with.
Yeah, you guys have definitely both given me some good points to think about here. I do agree. The NFC West, it's a little weak. The AFC South, it's not too great either. I'm kind of torn here. I'm trying to take my own personal bias out. Think about the points that you guys gave for me. And with that being said, I am going to go with Nick on this first one here. I think that, you just had a little bit more of a comprehensive argument. But we're not done. We got more stuff going on here. The Super Bowl's coming up. So we got a second debate topic here for you guys. Other than the quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, who will be the most impactful player or group of players that we have? Brian, I'm starting over with you.
All right, there's a lot tough to choose from, but I think at the end of the day, the biggest X factor for the Super Bowl is the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. They obviously got to protect their superstar quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, who's still dealing with that high ankle sprain, and they got to protect him at all costs against arguably the best pass rush in the league and maybe of this decade. According to PFF, they finished the regular season with the fourth. According to the PFF, they finished the regular season with the 4th best offensive line in the league in the Chiefs. Their best player on that line is center Creed Humphrey, but they also got Orlando Brown Jr. at left tackle and veteran Joe Thuney at left guard. That's a very solid offensive line to build around. and they face a tough task in trying to stop the Eagles' lethal pass rush. Led by elite linebacker Hassan Reddick, the Eagles had 75 sacks in the regular season, which was third all-time and the most since the 1985 Chicago Bears. In 2 playoff games this year, the Eagles have 8 sacks, which is absurd. So they got to try to stop Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick, all those guys. It's going to be a tough task, and the Chiefs have to do it if they want to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, who had a Creed Humphrey reference on their MCTV bingo card today? I love it. I love it. The Hogs, baby. I love the offensive line. Nick, hit me with what you got over here.
I'll give Creed Humphrey some credit. I love those big men up front, all right? Ramos, I like what you're bringing there with Creed Humphrey. But it's interesting because I'm actually going the complete opposite way on who I think the biggest X factor in this game is going to be. And that's a stud that, Ramos, you kind of mentioned, Hassan Reddick. I mean, a guy that you could have made the case should have been a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. I think he's going to make Patrick Mahomes' life hell in the backfield. Mahomes playing on that little bit of a banged-up ankle. Should get a little bit healthier with 2 weeks rest, but I think it's going to be tough for him to move around. And you look at what Hassan Reddick has done in this regular season. Like I said, could have been a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. 16 sacks, led the league in forced fumbles with 5. And you want to talk about a guy that's rounding into form at the perfect time. It is Hassan Reddick. In his 2 games in the playoffs so far, 3.5 sacks, 4 QB hits, 1 forced fumble that came against the 49ers. He's playing some of his best football right now. I think he's going to have a huge game alongside this dominant Eagles defensive line. Now, the Chiefs do have a really solid O-line. I'll give you that. But when you talk about all these guys on the Eagles defensive line, you referenced it, 70 sacks this season, 3rd most in a season all time in the NFL. Their pass rush win rate, 52%, which was highest in the NFL. And I think that Hassan Reddick lined up against Andrew Wiley, who was tied for 3rd in the most sacks given up this season. I think he's going to have a field day. I think he's going to be causing panic for Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the biggest X factor in this game.
It's like I heard the same stats come from you guys. It's like we should have just made the debate. It's like which line is going to win. Jeez, I feel like I'm the line of scrimmage right now. God, this is a good debate here, but I think when it comes down to it, we remember that Super Bowl last time we saw Kansas City. The offensive line was in shambles. It was that Tampa pass rush coming at them. And I do agree. I think the X factor, the most impactful, will be that Kansas City offensive line. It is on them to protect Mahomes. And I think Mahomes' ankle, I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be able to move around Hassan Reddick a little bit. The answer I really want to hear someone say was Chris Jones, because I love Chris Jones. But, I'm going to give this point to Brian. So we're moving here. Game 3, the best 2 words on halftime on the Hudson. We are going here. Coach of the Year. We got a couple candidates here. You guys have each, picked one. I'm curious. I want to hear your arguments. Who deserves to be the NFL Coach of the Year? We're going to start with you, Nick.
Well, first and foremost, I'm on air right now, so I'm going to say it. I think Nick Sirianni should have been a finalist. That's besides the point. Probably didn't deserve to win the award, should have been a finalist. But we do have 3 finalists, and I think the guy that should win it and will win it is Kyle Shanahan. I mean, you look at what he's taken this 49ers team through, how he steered this ship from the start of the season. First you lose Trey Lance. You think all hope might be lost. This is the guy, they were ready to give up on Jimmy Garoppolo for him. The future of their franchise, trading up in the draft to get him. They were going all eggs into that basket, and he goes down. No panic. Jimmy Garoppolo's back. We'll lead the thing going forward. We'll lead the ship going forward with Jimmy Garoppolo. All of a sudden, Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt. Done for the season. Wow, another time that this seems like the ship is going down. But Kyle Shanahan with Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, coming in to steer the ship the rest of the way. He's able to do so. And I think that the majority of the credit has to go to Shanahan when you have a guy that was an afterthought by the other 31 franchises in the NFL draft that comes in, doesn't miss a beat the rest of the regular season. They actually scored more points than any NFL franchise the rest of the season after Purdy took over. So I think Shanahan's offense deserves the majority of the credit for that, especially when you consider the fact that Shanahan was doing all of this in his first season without his longtime offensive coaching staff assistant, Mike McDaniel, who left to go to Miami. That was all on Shanahan. He's the offensive genius. He's the mastermind that was able to right the ship not once but twice with the 49ers and lead them all the way to the doorstep of a Super Bowl before obviously being knocked off to the Eagles in the playoffs. I think Shanahan's the Coach of the Year.
Yeah, that is, wow. I kind of feel passionate about Kyle Shanahan right now. You got me fired up a little bit. We'll get back to those Nick Sirianni comments later. Brian, I'm sure you have something to say about this. I know you have something to say about this. So let's hear what you have to say about this.
Nick, I mean, you did make a lot of great points, but there's personally nobody more deserving than Coach of the Year other than Brian Dable. He completely re-energized this Giants offense as they were 4th in rushing yards per game with 148.2, 5th in rushing yards per game with 4.84, and franchise record scoring at least one rushing touchdown in the last 15 games of the year. Dable is responsible for the resurgence of Daniel Jones as he had career highs in almost every stat. Career highs in completion percentage, 67.2. Career high in passing yards, 3,205. Career low in interceptions of 5, career high rushing yards 708, and rushing touchdowns of 7. Him and offensive coordinator Mike Kafka helped him become the franchise quarterback the Giants wanted him to be when they drafted him 6th overall a few seasons ago. Took the Giants to the playoffs and winning record for the first time since 2016. Also went on the road and beat a 13-win Minnesota Vikings team that they actually lost to in the regular season. Giants exceeded expectations significantly as they dealt with a lot of injuries, and their wide receiver one was a former practice squad player in Isaiah Hodgins. Their inside linebacker core was abysmal with Jalen Smith and Micah McFadden. Most people don't even know who Micah McFadden even is. Due to injuries at the corner position, they heavily relied on rookie Cordell Flott, who's just 175 pounds, while Adoree Jackson was out. So obviously, the roster was abysmal. What time is it, Nick? It's time for the Giants to take the league by storm. Brian Dable, Coach of the Year. Don't get me wrong, the 49ers are a great team. Kyle Shanahan's a great coach. But the 49ers had one of the best rosters in the league despite going through 3 quarterbacks in the regular season and 4 in the playoffs. Dable just did so much more with a much weaker roster. And the only difference is the 49ers won just one more playoff game. And also, as great as a coach as Shanahan is and as great as the 49ers were, many deemed Shanahan responsible for blowing the Super Bowl against the Chiefs when they were up 20-10 entering the 4th quarter and then shut out in that quarter. I just think Dable clearly just deserves this award.
Wow, there's a little
Coming
bit
from my name,
there's
Ramos.
a little bit of heat on set over here, man. I was waiting for you to say it. I was waiting for you to say it, and you finally said it. And it's the same way that I feel I like the argument. Kyle Shanahan, yes, it's a great system. It is a great system, and he's built this system. Let's give a little bit of credit to Brock Purdy. Guy's never lost a game. There's some talent on that roster, and I like what Brian Dable did, and you hit all the points. I'm glad you hit all the points. That's what this show's about. It's about proving your point, not just what I feel. But Brian came out here, proved a point. Nick, what time is it? I think it's time for Brian to win, man. I think that this is baby, soak it in, soak it in. I love the argument you made. I think Brian Dable also should be the coach here, but that's irrelevant because I think the argument that you put together was really solid. That's what we try to do here on Prove Your Point. So, Brian, congratulations. Your first win. This is your debut, right?
It is my debut.
Wow, do you have anything to say? Not even just to Nick, just, into the camera. Let it out.
Thank you guys for letting me hop on here. Nick, you're a great friend, great opponent, but I did think I had the better argument. So I was
way too humble. You squished him. Good job.
Bringing it back in here, boys. Show some love here.
And you're really bringing me through the ringer right now.
Sports Column,
Once
man.
wasn't enough.
This is we got love here. We got friends battling it out on display here. Brian with a great win. We got one more segment to you. Our very own Zach Musso sitting down, Jonathan Kinane. We're going to talk Marist sports, a little fireside chat for you guys, so stay right there.
Whopper, 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 Junior, Double, Triple, Whopper.
And welcome to our center field segment, where today, if you're going to talk Marist sports in center field, you got to bring the editor-in-chief, Jonathan Kinane of Center Field on. How we doing today?
Good, Zach. Thanks for having me. Ready to talk about Marist.
All right, you want to dig into it?
Fire away.
We got to start with the Marist basketball team. It's the pride and joy. It should be the pride and joy of Marist campus. Why is it not the pride and joy?
It's a good question. It's simple because they don't win. They had their first winning season in a while a couple years ago. But what did they do once it got to the postseason? They lost. Last year there were a lot of good vibes. There was that winning streak. They lost when it mattered in March. And this year they're just losing. And I actually wrote something for Center Field earlier this week about how no crowds are showing up at these games. No student crowds like. When they lost to Siena on Sunday, it was, there was so much green and gold at that game, the colors of Siena. It just totally outweighed all the Marist students that were there. And, no offense to the season ticket holders or anything, but a bunch of 70-year-olds aren't going to be making a lot of noise. So it was just kind of a quiet atmosphere and another Marist loss in the end.
So the root of these problems in any sport always comes back onto the head coach. And John Dunn gets a lot of heat on this campus for the job he's doing. You know, if you look at his numbers compared to previous Marist head coaches, it's better, but what's the bar here? Your bar is to aim to win max, and they're not even close to that right now. What does he just signed a contract extension, and it seemed last year like the program was going up. Now they're kind of treading water. What's his future on this campus?
Well, treading water is nice. That's a nice way to put it. And your bar of winning max is one thing, but there's a bar of winning MAC tournament games that he's not even setting right now. And credit does need to be given to him because if you look at some of the other coaches before him, Chuck Martin, Mike Maker, those were some truly disastrous tenures. And Dunn, right? We talked about how he did have a winning season. Last year they won 14 games. They had that 6-game winning streak. So it's a tough question. And then with all the transfers leaving, that raised a bunch of questions. But what a lot of people forget is that he actually got extended after last season. So I don't think Tim Murray is going to want to fire a coach after just extending him. And, Marist typically likes to have a long leash with some of their coaches. I mean, look at Jim Parody being here for 30-plus years. And I think Dunn will end up getting another year. Should he? That's a different question. I'm not sure if that's mine to answer, but if things keep going the way they're going, then I think Tim Murray is going to have to make a decision at the end of the year.
Well, I know you cover the team, so you have to stay bipartial. I'll answer. He should be gone if another season like that. It's not just that they get to the max and they flame out in the first round every year. So it's not even regular season. In a small conference, regular seasons don't matter. It's how you set yourself up when you get to the max.
Yep.
And it's not been good. But I will pivot. So you talk about these transfers. With the NIL landscape, you got guys like Jawa Tuka going to Wake Forest last year. If Marist is able to develop or recruit good prospects, is there a way to keep them? I know they replaced them by getting guys like Patrick Gardner from the D2 rank, but how does Marist compete in this world?
It's a great question. I mean, what do you do if you're John Dunn? If you find a talent that you can develop and who will probably end up transferring to an ACC school or an American Conference school like Ricardo Wright did, is it worth taking a year or two of them? It probably is, because if you get into the mindset like, oh, this player is going to end up being too good for me, that's just problematic, and that's what the transfer portal creates. So, it's just Marist being in the lower echelon of Division I and having to go get guys like Gardner, from a D2, not even a really well-regarded D2 program, and it's just, I don't know, Zach, in terms of NIL, Marist doesn't have anything. I think it was Siena or Iona, they announced an NIL program, which is definitely cutting edge for the MAC. But in terms of capitalizing here, good luck. Getting I don't know if you're going to get a deal with Lola's or Rossi's or something, but good luck.
So if you're not able to pay players like that, then you have to go to the D2 and the D3 ranks to get the Patrick Gardners. He's second in the MAC in scoring this year. Do you think he has a chance at MAC Men's Player of the Year, or is Marist's low position in the standings going to hurt him there?
It's gonna hurt him. He's not going to be MAC Player of the Year. I mean, you can look at Iona has a couple guys that could be MAC Men's Player of the Year. Siena has a couple. I think he can make maybe the second team. I think first team even is a stretch, just because these things are usually based on a little bit of team success, and Gardner is the Marist team. He's averaging 18 a game or whatever it is, and then last time I checked, no one else is even averaging in double figures. So he is the team, but the team's not winning, and it's a shame he's only going to be around for a year, because I don't know what they're going to do after he graduates.
Over, under 1.5 years, John Dunn will be fired. You taking the over or the under?
Well, as many people will tell you, I am a betting man, and I expressed a little faith in Dunn when I came on one of these times last year, but I don't know. I can't see him making it more than 2 seasons, especially because it looks like, I mean, he might have another rebuild job on his hands next year because Gardner's gone, you know, and that's the integral piece of your team. So I don't like to say it, but I will say under.
Yeah, I like that he says it. It's good to hear. We both like to place, a little legal friendly wagers, but we're gonna pivot to the women's basketball team.
Sure.
This is your pride and joy as the beat reporter for the women's basketball team. 2 years ago, 2020 NCAA tournament. Now, seems like we're on the downfall. This is Georgia's last year on campus. What do you make of the Marist landscape? Kind of mid-MAC right now. What's going on with the women's team?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Just middle. It's not as much of a disaster as last year when it was, injuries, offensive troubles, some chemistry issues even on the team. This year, they're better. They're winning games they should win largely in the MAC and, losing games they should lose. So they're treading water. But the story of this season has just been a lack of balance, right? So you have Kiara Fisher and Zaria Shazer, who are, the two star players on the team. Fisher's their point guard. She went off for 44 in a game against Mount St. Mary's. And, Shazer has gone off for some big games. She gives them dependable scoring inside. And then you have Kendall Crick as a third option who has proved that she can make the free ball this season. She's coming off a game where she made, I believe, 5 threes. But after that, it's just, good luck finding production. Because what happens is a lot of time those top 3 players end up scoring the bulk of the points. And you just don't get anything from anyone else, especially in the games that Marist has lost. And, it's just, they're too predictable, too easy to defend. Like, if you can take Shazer or Fisher out of the game, it's just really like only 2 other people can score. So they've had some rough times getting contributions.
So after one of the last games, I listened to a sound, and Georgia sounded a little run down. This is his last year. He's retiring. What does the program look like in the future post his retirement?
Well, I think they're in very capable hands with Erin Dowdy. If you don't know the story with her, she walked on to play at Marist in Georgia's first season, became an assistant coach, rose her way up, became associate head coach, and then eventually there was that press conference where she was officially tabbed as his successor. And I think that's the way to do it. Have a succession plan. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect a lot of stuff to change. I mean, Dowdy's a different person from Georgia's, but in terms of, the program values, what they're going to do, I think a lot of that is going to be similar. And I think recruiting-wise, still looking for the same people. That's one of the reasons why Georgia's took like that extra year. He didn't just retire after last season, was to get some of that continuity. So I think they'll be in good hands, and hopefully she can help the team find their way back to their rightful place in the upper echelon of the conference.
So the state of Marist sports in general seems rather depressing the way we're talking about it. But we do have one positive thing. Marist women's water polo, ranked 22nd in the country. Is this the positive sport at Marist?
We need something to smile about, right? There hasn't been too much so far this season, but yeah, water polo. They started the season ranked 25th. They're up to 22nd, which is great. They're testing themselves with some difficult games and out-of-conference tournaments. They're going out west all over. I think they're going to Hawaii at some point if they haven't already been there.
They did already.
They did already. Yeah. So they're going to be going around. I think they're playing like at Cambridge against Harvard or something like that.
Nationally ranked
cool.
Harvard.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens come MAC time. And I know they were in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago, and they actually won some games. So hopefully they can get back to that.
All right. Last question here for you. We still have a relatively new president, so theoretically he's not tied to anyone on Marist campus. He is a former CFO, so you would assume he's money conscious. What do you think the future of Tim Murray is at Marist campus, Marist athletic director? It's been a rough state here. Is that going to fall on his shoulders at some point?
Look, Tim Murray is one of the most powerful people on this campus. That's how it is a lot of the time with athletic directors. They kind of run things, and I think. I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but I think Murray has the job until he doesn't want the job. I don't think Weinman is going to force him out. And yeah, it's tough. Hopefully things look up, but there are glaring kind of dark spots on the tenure when you look at football. and men's basketball. So we'll see if anything changes, but, you know, stuff might not change until we move on from Tim Murray. But that's just kind of the way it is here at Marist, and it's just the status quo. You know, I spoke about people being here for a while. Murray's been here since 1995 as the AD.
Older than both of us.
Yeah. He, you know, so it's, I don't know. What do you think about it, Zach?
Yeah, I don't know. Change is hard, but change is good. Change is good, especially, you know, the definition of insanity is doing something over and over again and expecting different results. So change is good. Last thing here for you. So Centerfield Magazine is coming out this spring. Talk a little bit about Centerfield. What's going on?
It's exciting times in Centerfield. You know, if I do say so myself, I promise I'm not biased. We're getting chartered as a club, as an SGA club, Student Government Association. That's exciting. We're running our second edition of the magazine, and we really hope to, you know, deliver an improved edition from the first, which was still great, but we want this to be even better. You know, it's a transitional year where a lot of the seniors, such as myself, our deputy editor-in-chief, a bunch of other editors, our graphic design people, all on their way out. So if you're watching this and you're interested, I will shamelessly plug Centerfield. Join it, and you can work with some great sports comm people.
All right, everyone. You heard it from the man himself. That's Jonathan Canning. Thanks for watching.